Join us live on the Sherry Lord Talk Show podcast. Start your day off with the Higher Vibrational Podcast with weekly guests covering spirituality, healthy foods, and so much more. Go to sherrylord.com for more info. Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday. It's a little chilly out there. Make sure you guys bring your coffee and come listen to this wonderful conversation that we're going to have today with Don Allen Williams, and we're going to introduce him in just a few minutes. We want to let everybody know that we have ads, paid ads, and you can always go to www.sherrylord.com and place your ad. We have reasonable prices, and we're more than happy to promote you. And you can get a list of all the wonderful guests that we've had on our show and those who are upcoming. And we have an amazing guest today, and we're so happy to have him on. And we're excited to have Donald Allen Williams. And welcome, Don. We're so happy to have you.
Hello, humans.
Yeah, and our topic today will be belief versus knowing. This is going to be really good. But what I found out is that when I read your bio, very interesting bio, and we want you to talk a little bit more about you. I'm just going to do little highlights, but people want to hear your story. And you have a degree in engineering. You're a master energy healer. You're a psychic intuitive medium, actor, modeling, retail manager. And the other thing when I met Don, I walked into, it was a metaphysical store in beautiful Venice, Florida. And he manages that store. He's Ways of Light Mystical Boutique. They are at 101 West Venice Avenue, Unit 17. And they're on the island. So make sure you go on the island and say hi to Don and let him know you heard about him on their store about the podcast, Sherry Lord Show. They're at the corner of Miami, Tammy, Miami, and Miami. And they're right on the island. You guys, it's a beautiful store. The energy is very high. If you just want to go in there and feel peace, walk on in. You want to shop. It's a retail store. Books. They have crystals, they have stones, they have everything. The bracelets are really nice, and jewelry, and so much more. But it'd be nice to have a conversation with Don. And Don, you also had a situation when you were 10 years old. Can you explain to us and our audience how your path unfolded and how do you went into the metaphysical world?
Sure thing. So, I mean, as a younger kid, like 3 years old, I had kind of thoughts that, hey, maybe the world's a little different. But it wasn't until I was 10 till like that was verified. I had, I'm an average 10-year-old boy, and I had a younger brother and an older brother. And this particular time frame, it was early December, and my younger brother and I were playing tag in the house. My older brother was watching us. He had done this year, he'd looked after us, doing these types of things. He's 7 years older than me. I'm 10 years old.
Wow.
My brother would be 8 years old. And I'm doing this running somersault onto a couch, and I had done this before.
Wow.
And this particular time when I did it, it was as if all my experiences were totally thrown out the door.
Oh.
Normally when you do that type of a tuck and roll thing, it's like instantaneous. You do the tuck roll and you're up and you're running and 1, 2, 3. But this time it was, okay, I landed somehow on the couch, no momentum.
Wow.
I can feel my head. I can see my body, but I can't feel it.
Wow.
And within moments, I was being beaten over the head by a pillow by my younger brother, who thought I was playing possum, didn't want to play the tag anymore, and was upset with me or something. And there's nothing I could do. And I tried to speak, but when you're in this situation, you cannot feel your body. You can't control it. You don't realize how much your muscles and everything else. So I could project my voice through my lungs, but he couldn't. And so after pummeling me over the head for a couple moments, he took off his socks and shoved them in my mouth. Typical boy thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then after I
Wow.
worked out that those socks with my tongue and squeaked out whatever I was able to say to him that say I couldn't move, he figured, oh, maybe something's the matter here, and
No.
ran off to got my older brother who was a teenager at the time, so he's yakking on the phone, and he comes in and he does something to my leg, gives me an Indian burn or pulls something or pinches something. I don't know what it was, but I didn't react. And he's like, okay, there's something the matter here. And so they called the ambulance and all that type of stuff. And when they came,
Mm.
there was a fire chief that was the father of someone that was in my grade, and he said, "Hey, you okay?" And I tell them everybody what's going on, but
Yeah.
they can't really hear me that well either because I can't speak
Mm.
loudly. But they put the foam neck thing on me, and
Wow.
then on the stretcher, and they take me to the hospital. But then they put me underneath this big bright light. I couldn't tell you the room because I couldn't see left or right or anything. All I saw was above me was this big light, and I was thirsty because I literally had sock mouth. And when I came to when a nurse or somebody came by, they said, "We can't give you anything. We don't know what caused this." And I'm thinking,
Wow.
I just told you this. This isn't rocket science. They're not doing any scans or X-rays or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my body was in shock, but I
Yeah.
was cognizant of that. I was more or less like just observing this. And what was also interesting is I never had a sense of like fear or dread or anything bad happening. It was just like, this is strange. There's nothing
Wow.
you can do. All you can do is sort of let go and let it happen. So that's what I did. And what really made me kind of like think, something strange is going on here. Even though I couldn't feel
Yeah.
my body, I felt like
Oh,
my body was my soul, which is kind of where I was like, okay, something is more spiritual
yeah.
going on here. I could feel what it felt like, or what I thought my soul was like, having difficulty whether it was going to stay with the body, and it was like going through the table,
Oh, wow.
and it was a strange feeling. I was like, okay, maybe I'm losing it. Maybe this is all a dream or something. So I was like, relax, close my eyes,
Wow.
and I think I just went out. And
Wow.
next thing I know, the next morning, I'm in the hospital. They have me propped up like most hospital beds. And I woke to the dietitian racket coming in with the breakfast stuff. And I said, "Oh, wow, I'm really thirsty. Could you give me some of that juice?" And they put this juice in my hand. I dump it all over myself. And they said, "I'm
Oh,
dead," and all sorts of stuff. I'm like, really? I mean, and I told you I couldn't hold anything. So I was like, okay, I'm still telling them stuff and they're not listening.
hmm.
And I heard in the corridor my father talking to one of the doctors or whomever it was supposed to be over my case or whatever, however they do things in the hospital.
Okay.
And the doctor tells my dad, it's a beautiful December morning. It just started snowing. He stunned himself while he was playing. He's perfectly okay. Take him
Oh,
sled.
wow.
Thinking to myself, I am in so much trouble.
Wow.
The world here is
Unbelievable.
totally. It's like what anybody had ever told me was up for suspicion and question. Like adults are supposed to help you out. They're all failing
Yeah.
me. Supposed to listen to you. Care? No, they don't. Oh, they're just going to do their own thing. I was just another person that was there as a patient they want to get rid of. And my dad, so he picks me up, and he's kind of caught between what he's told to do by the doctor, because we're all brainwashed into listening to authority,
Hmm.
and myself. And he's like, okay, I'll do what the doctor says. But, he lifts me up and brings me to the car, and I still can't move or do anything. And I'm telling
Wow.
you. So he takes me to grandma's house and puts me on a bed. And for the rest of that day, I'm staring at the ceiling. And
Wow.
I think he was hoping that somehow, what the doctor said, like all of a sudden
Hmm.
break out of, because I think they thought I was sort of making this up or something at this.
Okay.
And word that my mom and my stepfather, who were in, like, this all happened when I was 10 years old
Yeah.
in Cleveland, Ohio. And my my mom and stepfather were in Atlantic City at the time on like a little mini vacation thing.
Okay.
And so they had to get word to them that night, the previous night, and they drove back. So it took a little bit through the day, but my dad found out, okay, your mom's going to be back home, so he's happy to get rid of me, picks me up in the car, takes me to where I live, puts me in my bed, takes off. So my mom comes in. She's a nurse. She's like, okay, something's not quite right. What happened? Da da da. And she did the first thing that was really kind of unique throughout my whole experience. Is she sat me up in a kitchen on the kitchen table on one of the kitchen seats, which was straight up. Everything else, I
Mhm.
was always some sort of slant or laying down, and it didn't
Okay.
immediately, but it was enough sitting straight up where the gravity was able to touch whatever was disconnected quite right.
Mhm.
And I used the metaphor of you might have seen like a TIG welder or something like this where they're jumping the sparks. And I think that's kind of what was happening. It went to the point where there was no touching to some touching, and the sparks started jumping, because then I went from not being able to move at all to shooting pain going through me
Oh,
like a fish out of
yeah.
water, convulsions,
Yeah.
whole type of thing. My
Wow.
holding me on the table, calling 911 again. Then they get me in the get me out, take me on off to the hospital, and then they're all upset at me because I can't stop moving, and they can't.
Wow.
And they're trying to do the scans and stuff, whatever scans they were doing on me, and it took a long time for my body to kind of like calm down from all that. And
Wow.
they were able to eventually get some scans and stuff, but they couldn't find anything that they thought was the matter with me. They wanted to put me in a room with camera. Once again, they thought I was the world's greatest actor, and their ego was so big
Wow.
that I had to be making this up. And I went from that pain feeling that I had to basically going back to the inability to move. And if it was like very sluggish, like I was like really like I was almost like in tar or something. It was not like normal stuff. And
Wow.
uh, they actually had some doctor who figured out tough cases or something like this, and asked
Oh,
me, "Hey,
good.
figure out what's going on with this kid. We think he's making it all up. Take a look at." But I cracked the C1, which is the vertebrae next to brainstem, and
Mm.
their training as a doctor is, well, if that happens, typically a person dies like instantaneously.
Mm.
Something went to great lengths to keep me around,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
then they said, okay, we're going to take you into surgery. And they chipped up part of my left hip, and they fused it with a wire and put me in traction and all that.
Mm.
But when all that was going on in surgery, to my knowledge, my vitals didn't go like near death, but I did have that experience where I went to the other side.
Okay.
And when I was there, it was a lot different than anything I was ever primed or informed about or anything like that. And I didn't really speak about it when I came back, largely
Okay.
because I could. Time over there is way different than it is over here.
Okay.
Like time doesn't matter over there the way it does here, and I could have been there for 3 hours, 3 days,
Wow.
months, 30 years. There's no way to be able to judge that.
Yeah.
And then coming back in this body, it's like there's so much information that this
Hmm.
body can't process, that all I had was kind of images and thoughts and kind of
Hmm.
mental memories of it. So it was difficult for me to really understand it myself until, as time passed in this
Okay.
life, then there was more energy on this side that can work through all that I had been through. But
Wow.
it's kind of weird because we refer to anybody who dies, and we think of their spirit as death on the other side, so to speak. And over there, it's sort of like, well, we're dead to them, and we're the equivalent, almost like moving through quicksand. We're moving
Yeah.
so slow. Um, and I had a council. Everyone has heard of the 1111 number and think, okay, this
Hmm.
is with angels and stuff like this. And we basically have these 11 that are part of our council, and we can think of those as our angels, right? and they're here in our lives, wanting us to succeed, and they're always trying to help us out. At least that was my experience, and it was more like, sit down here, well, we got more planning, going according to plan, and all that type of stuff. And so yeah, it was interesting.
Wow. How
So
did you, yeah, how did you get into the energy? Did it just expand from that experience? Were you seeking at that time?
well, to get back to the broken neck experience, just real quick, when I came
Yeah.
back, I recovered in less than 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And
That's quick.
uh, yeah, went through the surgery that mid-December, went through Christmas, New Year's, February. I think it was about February or something like
Yeah.
that. They went into another like rehab, more about
Mhm.
working on my motor skills and all this type of stuff. And then
Yeah.
I was back home for a month or so with a little bit of homeschooling, and then I was back at school and finished out the
Mhm.
school. Um, but what I learned through that period was uh, one, when you lose one sense, your other senses become more heightened. They've
Yep.
maybe was blind or someone who can't hear or something like this.
Yep.
Definitely understand. Oh, okay. There's much more of a reason why we have our senses. Sort of like
Mhm.
a computer has all these little hookup points that allow it to work, interact with it, and there's a reason for those. And also, I had an understanding about energy, although I'm a 10-year-old, so I
Okay.
didn't know language or anything else like that. So I started kind of working with healing my own body while I had to go through the natural direction of the doctors and so forth and so on. And so there was a sense of knowing that did not have language associated with
Yeah.
it, based off of this kind of like
Mhm.
the other side that you vaguely have memories and stuff with until you're getting older and you can integrate it more into your life. Um, so, when it comes to belief, before that, I may have had that type of I don't know what to
Okay.
think. I was told by so and such or religion or whatever these thoughts and way to have a perception of things, and
Okay.
tends to really come from the root word means to wish something to be true. And
Okay.
when you go through something like this, you're like, no, okay, I'm not wishing this to be true.
Yeah.
I'm learning and knowing what it is at
Yeah.
the same time. And that's part of the thing that I learned too was, like this world kind of gets the human version of it. How would you want to put it? The human society. It's an
Mhm.
over nature, so to speak. It tries to get us all focused in on how things happen.
Mhm.
What's really strange about this is like each of us have had an experience where we like had to learn to ride a bike or swim or something like this,
Mhm.
and that the adult or whomever is teaching us supposedly they're telling us how to do it based off of their experience. So
Yeah.
they're to put into words what their experience was to teach us how to do it, but until you successfully ride that bike or learn to
Yeah.
swim, you don't really know how. So how is the end result, not the first step. And we
Mhm.
get all kind of screwy and backwards here. And when you have that go from that sense of knowing,
Yeah.
you don't care how.
Yeah.
You trust it and you just go with what you know, because it's just that's the way it is, and it's more about the experience and the journey. And
Yeah.
uh you know when I grew up, I was always interested in like math and science, because that was something
Okay.
to me was concrete, versus everything else seemed to be more opinion based, and that was kind of like
Mhm.
the opinion and a belief thing.
Yeah.
And okay, what's true, what's not true, and then I started, as I was even more into that, the science part of it is like, okay, this is kind of like this is the greatest theory until the next greatest theory comes along. So that's not really
Mhm.
even either. And so I got into engineering and mechanical engineering. I liked design and drawing, and because of the energy and I had a
Yeah.
natural sense of colors and frequencies, and
Mhm. Yeah.
uh, and I always got being kept on being pushed towards the quality side of that to
Ah.
help. I think in the long run, it's to help me understand that we need to raise the way we view things from
Mm-hmm.
a standpoint of quality. And we've been slowly throughout my life, I've noticed, uh, put into sort of a sleep mode where
Yeah.
people are learning to accept less and be happy with it. And the idea of what you permit, you promote, there people aren't paying attention to. And what you permit, you promote, what you promote, you permit. And it's like that, those simple rules we've thrown out, and we've just kind of lowered our quality of standards of the way we should be. You would think as long as humanity's been around, we should be at a much higher level of
Oh,
dealing
yeah.
with other and things like this, right? So, yeah. And
Wow.
and then with me, I was introduced to the
Mm-hmm.
store here. We have
Okay.
a little boutique, but before I became the manager there, and
Okay.
the idea of more of a conformed and organized structure to some of the energy healing I had done was I was introduced to that.
Mm-hmm.
Several years back, I'd learned Reiki, and I was
Okay.
familiar with a group and things like that. Got the basic, level one or whatever it was. I wasn't even seeking to do that. I was just spending time with some friends, and I just ended up doing it.
Wow.
Uh, and I still wasn't really applying it to anything outside of myself or helping out anybody. It just wasn't my thing. Uh, Largely because there were so many things that I understood without having language for,
Right.
that I felt that I should learn the language and be able to explain it to people before I
Mhm.
start getting involved with the stuff. And the language that I was hearing other people using wasn't really, it didn't really seem quite right to me. Like there was
Yeah.
stuff. And so then when I learned this method, which is called Vajra, it's a
Okay.
Tibetan shamanic. It means diamond thunder. It's fast acting. And Reiki looks at life. Reiki's Japanese. And most people who aren't familiar with Reiki, if they ever see the original Karate Kid, you have Mr.
Yeah.
Miyagi again, rubbing his hand, healing
Yeah.
Daniel. Uh, that's Reiki, right? And that the energy is coming through us at all times. So we're just consciously aware of it and focusing it through our hands and
Yeah.
transferring energy and that energy onto somebody to heal. That's Reiki, basically. Whereas Vajra, it looks at the way nature works, and you see
Yeah.
plants outside, and we're taught through science that just because a plant happens to be in sunlight, it's going to grow and it's getting the energy from the sun. But the Tibetan shamanic looks at it as all energy seeking a
Yeah.
purpose, and that plants are calling that energy to it to feed it.
Mhm.
And so I use this energy that I call in through a series of processes to heal holistically. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not zoning in on like somebody's spleen or something like that.
Yeah.
In fact, when I do healing, I'm not asking them anything about what
Yeah.
they think their issue is, because largely the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual aspects, even their sexual aspects that they have their own blocks with, are causing them their pains and ailments and things like this, and they got to kind of get out of their own way.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it really is. And can you let our people know who's watching us? This is a really good conversation. I mean, you've been through so much, but I mean, you evolved from all of that and you have a bigger, better spiritual understanding and meaning that sometimes you can't explain it. You just know. And I think that's amazing. And how many other people who are watching have had something that they can't explain? Please make sure you put a little chat box and say hello and tell us your story as well. But Don, you've been amazing. Look at you now. I mean, now from where you are, where you were to where you are, you've grown a lot, you know? And I think that's amazing. And anything else you'd like to share with our audience too?
Well, anybody who may have been through something like I've been through,
Yeah,
or if somebody has been through that, uh, the good thing is I know how to help people go through the process a lot better, because now I have the language for it. I can explain a lot of the little nuances. And that's always part of the difficulty is we all speak supposedly the same language, but there's
Right.
an ability to comprehend it and understand the perception, where we've been tunnel visioned into this small segment of the what there is and what there isn't, and being able to be outside of that and then
Right.
find our authority in having that greater view and seeing the bigger picture. That's what I would suggest. Is, it helps to have conversations with others to
Right.
so therefore you don't, first off, you don't feel alone, because that was my biggest thing. I was like, I am totally isolated here. Talk to anybody about this.
Yeah.
Understands what I'm talking about. As a little kid, I had a nickname that was an anagram. Instead of my name being Don, it was Mike, and instead for me, I know everything, because I would be talking about things with this kind of assertiveness and a know
Yeah.
about it. And it was used as a sort of a joke term, of course, because everybody wanted to dismiss what I was talking about. That was kind of like, I just had to learn to live with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing, especially your story, your path, and where you are now. And, you know, you are in a store, which I think is great. It has a big pillar of light around it. And I mean, you're holding the space there as well at the retail. Um, and he makes sure you come and say hi to Don and let him know you saw it on the Sherry Lord podcast, the Spirituality and Authors podcast. Come and say hi to him. He's an amazing, beautiful soul. You want to meet him. You want to have a conversation with him. And he has a beautiful, managing a retail store. They have beautiful stones, crystals, books. Their bracelets and necklaces are wonderful. But if you just want to go in and just want to feel at peace and let everything go, the vibration in that store is amazing. And you just want to have a conversation and say hi to Don, come on out down to beautiful Venice, Florida. It's amazing. I know a lot of people that are here may not know that you're there, and we just want to point it out. Our friends out in Sarasota on the East Coast, throughout Florida, and those who are coming down for the snowbirds. I want everybody to know that you're there, because it's really needed. People need a space to go to, but they can't tell anybody about. They can tell a few friends, but they really want to connect with those who understand, and they love it. And make sure you go to Waves of Light Mystical Boutique. They're at 101 West Venice Avenue, Unit 17. They are on the island, corner of Tamiami Trail and Miami. Is there anything else you'd like to share? We really want you to come down and say hi to Don, walk into that beautiful store and get a high vibration and peace, and feel the peace. And you'll feel that shift when you walk in, and you'll feel better when you walk out.
Well, we're out here, and we want to meet you. And unless
Yeah,
you make yourself present, we can't meet you. And one thing about the voice that I try to tell
yeah,
people, it's our job to make the unknown known. No
yeah,
one knows what's going on inside of us unless we share it with others.
yeah.
And you haven't been able to find somebody to share it with, you're welcome to share it with me.
Do you guys have a Facebook page, a website? Is there a phone number? How can they get a hold of you?
There's a there's a Facebook page. As far as a website, there's nothing that has been set up.
Okay,
And as far as the phone number, you can go on the Google and
okay.
waves
They
of light
can
up.
get it
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Absolutely. Make sure you come on down and say hi. And they would love to have you in their store. And especially the conversation with Don, you're going to just feel wonderful when you leave that store and when you walk into the store. A lot of wonderful gifts, and come help the beautiful downtown people in the stores down there as well. We love helping the people and everyone around. And especially that you guys need to know that there is a metaphysical store there, and it is called Waves of Light Mystical Boutique. And it's at 101 and West Venice Avenue, Unit 17. It's on the corner of Tamiami trail in Miami. It is on the island, and go to beautiful Venice, Florida. And we'll see you all, and thank everybody for joining us and for this wonderful conversation. We thank Don for being on our show. We'd love to have you back. Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.